Let me tell you something that'll stick in your head all day. There's nothing quite like watching your own life go up in smoke and then being told by a woman in a pantsuit with a smile sharp enough to open mail that the land you rebuilt with your own hands? Sorry, sir, that belongs to the HOA now. Welcome to Ridgepine Hollow. If you're expecting a happy story, well, you might want to buckle in. I never set out to end up on 5 burnout acres in California, out where even the wind seemed afraid to breathe. But after 30 years fighting wildfires, watching whole mountains disappear in a night, and small towns lose their faces to the flames, you start to crave a little quiet. A place where nothing happens, and maybe you can finally sit down without thinking about the next disaster. That was my hope. This land? It wasn't much, just blackened stumps, some melted metal, and a foundation twisted like the earth itself had just let go. But the thing about ruins is they're honest. No pretending, no pretense, just the truth bare and burnt. I'll admit it, not many folks know this, but the first time I walked that land, I spoke to the trees, or what was left of them, just charred poles stuck in ash. I said, barely above a whisper, "Don't worry, I'll bring you back." Maybe it was loneliness, maybe exhaustion, maybe the ghosts of every fire I'd worked, but I needed to say it, needed to promise something wasn't finished. The fire that cut through Mendocino County had teeth. It killed 3 people, torched dozens of homes, and scarred almost 3,000 acres. People out there didn't talk about it, not if they could help it. But somehow, my little patch slipped through the cracks. No squabbling family, no probate, no HOA trying to snap it up as community open space. Just a clean title, up for auction. Federal surplus. I bought it with cash, every wrinkled bill I'd squirreled away from years of consulting work. Didn't trust banks, didn't really trust people either, but the government had one rule: rebuild it to code, it's yours. Fair enough. The smell hit me hard. Smoke baked into the dirt, the iron sting of burned brush, and a search and rescue X painted crooked on the old front step. Most folks see tragedy. I saw a second chance. So I walked that perimeter 3 times, boots crunching on brittle ash, listening to the hush that felt more like respect than emptiness. No birds, not yet. Just a silence that hung like it was waiting for someone to speak up for the land. I didn't know it then, but I wasn't alone. Somebody had their eye on this place long before I showed up. And the white SUV? Yeah, that was just the beginning. Back then, it was me and the wind and the battered skeleton of a forest that refused to surrender. I put my hand on that ruined concrete, whispered again, "Let's start over." Building it back wasn't one decision. It was a million tiny ones, one at a time, like fixing up an old truck you found rusting in a field. The first week, I slept in a prefab shed on the north edge, just a cot, a lantern, and a lock I trusted more than luck. Mornings were the best part. Cold enough to sting your fingers, quiet enough that you could hear your own breath, hear the world settling into itself. I'd step out, stretch, fill my lungs with that mix of hope and ash, and look at the place where someone else's life had been stamped out. Then I'd get to work, new concrete, steel beams, fire-resistant everything. Every cut, every nail, a way to say, destruction doesn't get the last word. About 2 weeks in, I heard tires on gravel. Wiped my hands on my jeans, half expecting a county inspector or maybe a board deputy come to see if I'd filled something out wrong. But no, it was a white pickup CAL FIRE badge on the door. Out steps Lena Kim, dark hair pulled back, clipboard, eyes sharp as a blade. "You the one rebuilding?" she asked. I nodded. Trying to. She didn't smile, but she didn't need to. We walked the edge together, her asking about fire breaks, ember-resistant siding, ventilation. For every question, I had an answer. Not to impress her, but because I'd seen what happens when people don't take fire seriously. She finished her loop, handed me her card. "If you run into anything weird, permits, claims, people, call me." I asked why. She glanced at the trees, the land sagging under all that memory. "This area hasn't just had fire trouble," she said, then left. Didn't think much about it. Just figured she meant illegal campfires, or maybe bored teenagers, the usual. If I'd been listening a little closer, if I'd caught the worry under her words, maybe I'd have seen it coming sooner. Days fell into rhythm. Frame by frame, the house rose again. Roof, walls, finally a giant front window, heavy as a secret. And when I looked at my reflection, I saw someone older, but maybe finally a little steadier. Night softened. Deer nose around my tools. I slept for the first time in years without boots by the bed, without dread pressing down on my chest. Maybe that's why I missed the signs. The missing boundary stake, the neat patch of disturbed earth. At first, I told myself it was wildlife, but deer don't yank stakes straight out and fill the hole. I walked the line and found tire tracks, not for my trucks, but something lighter, different treads. They'd come in from the road, hugged my fence, then left, quiet as a rumor. Then, one morning, there was a white SUV parked just far enough down the road to be out of reach, windows black as secrets, engine running. Watching. I didn't move, didn't wave. Just watched back, and eventually, it eased away, slow, unhurried, polite. I got back to work, tried to forget about it, but that night the silence felt different, heavy, chosen. I heard gravel crunch in the dark, something deliberate, but when I stepped out, there was nothing. Whoever it was, they wanted me to know I wasn't alone, but not why. Next morning, I heard the engine before I saw it, rolling up with the confidence of a landlord, not a guest. This time, the white SUV didn't stop at the road. It came up the drive, dust curling behind. For doors open at once, 3 people step out, and I knew this wasn't a neighborly call. The woman led the way, mid-50s, hair in a bun, blazer pressed so sharp it could cut glass. Smile like a bank teller denying a loan. "Mr. Curtis?" she asked, but her voice said, "I already know." I nodded. She offered a handshake. I ignored it. "I'm Karen Blackage, president of the Ridgepine Hollow Homeowners Association. We wanted to welcome you." I looked past her at the SUV, the same one that had been lurking like a patient wolf. I smiled polite. "I'm not in Ridgepine Hollow." Her smile twitched. "Technically you are. There's been some administrative redistricting since the fire." She nodded to the man in a suit, who opened a folder thick enough to bludgeon a cow. "Updated boundary plan," he said. "Your parcel now falls under the Ridgepine Hollow Protective Zone. Member by default." I flipped the papers, handed them back. "Nope." Karen blinked, slow, cold-blooded. "Well, new boundaries can be confusing." "Not confusing," I said, fake. "I bought this from federal surplus. Title's clean, no HOA." Her nostrils flared. The clipboard guy piped up. "We've also received complaints about your unapproved solar array. The reflection impacts bedrooms on Pine Hollow Drive." I raised an eyebrow. "That's a mile away." He shrugged. "Light travels." I laughed soft. Karen cleared her throat. "Let's start things off right. Annual dues, $1,100, plus a few adjustments. House color, water tanks behind a privacy screen, that sort of thing." That time the laugh escaped. "Lady, I built this place myself. You think I'm repainting it beige because a committee says it clashes with their bushes?" Her smile broke, the light behind her eyes dimming. "We take community harmony very seriously." I nodded. "And I take private property very seriously." For a second, there was nothing, just 2 people not budging. Then she smiled too wide. "Well then, enjoy your new home." And they left, slow and smug, dust hanging in the air long after they disappeared. That wasn't the end. Not even close. The next morning, my solar panels shattered, every one. Someone had smashed them in the night. Not random, not rage, but careful cold. The missing stake was snapped and tossed by the tree line. But the real message? 2 concrete barricades, shoulder high, placed in my drive, bright red. HOA property, do not enter. They didn't just want me out. They wanted me boxed in, isolated. I called the sheriff. Explained everything. The dispatcher was polite, useless. "Sounds like a civil dispute, sir. Unless there's an active threat, bureaucratic for, not my problem." I hung up, not angry, just cold. I'd spent years putting out fires other people started. Now I was up against one that didn't even bother to hide. I spent that night with my old drone kit, combing over every inch of footage I'd taken since buying the land. And there it was, 6 weeks before I moved in, a man in a green vest, Ridgepine Hollow logo, carrying a red gasoline can near my boundary. Not inspecting, not clearing brush. just setting the stage. My stomach sank. The local reporter, Wilkins, helped me dig through old fire reports. That's where I found the evidence. A photo of a metal sign, half melted, reading controlled burn in progress. HOA maintenance only. No permit, no official record. They'd lit a burn 1 week before the wildfire. People died. And now, they wanted my land, wanted it buried and quiet. Back home, I checked maps, documents, everything. The county record said my land was outside the HOA. The updated map from Karen's folder, 4 months old, suspiciously convenient, drew the boundary right through my land. Bureaucratic fraud, plain and simple. Then, an envelope arrived. No return address, just my name. Inside, a single sheet. Karen gave the order. I warned them about the wind. They ignored it. I have the recordings. If I stay, I'm dead. Signed M. Marcus, the clipboard guy. The next day, he called, voice shaking. We met at a diner. He slid me a USB, full of meetings, instructions, Karen's voice ordering the burn, others warning her, ignored. Please finish it, he begged. Don't let them bury it. I called Lena Kim. She came fast, in an old truck, eyes sharp. I laid out everything. Drone footage, the tag, the USB. She didn't flinch. This is manslaughter. Maybe more. She called in the feds. DOJ, Cal Fire, the works. 3 days later, they descended. Black SUVs, state trucks, agents everywhere. Karen stood on the sidewalk, demanding answers. The sheriff, same one who brushed me off, got told to step aside. As they hauled boxes, laptops, every scrap of evidence out, Lena caught my eye and nodded. It was over. We're starting to be. The HOA collapsed. My land finally was free. People showed up to celebrate. Neighbors, reporters, the old guard from Cal Fire. Even Marcus, protected, hidden, gave me back the tag I'd found. Thanked me for finishing what he couldn't. A kid with soot on his face asked, "Are you the guy who beat the fire?" I said no. The fire came through. I just didn't let it finish the job. He nodded, wise beyond his years, and ran off. Lena handed me an official map. My land, no annexations, no lies, just mine. The quiet was warm again. The wind sounded like it was breathing easy. Here's what I learned. Some people burn things for power, some for profit. But truth, like fire, spreads, and if you carry it long enough, someone will feel the heat. It took me a lifetime to see that not all fights are with flames. Some are with paper, lies, and the smugness of people who think nobody will stand up. But stand up and watch what happens. Justice, slow as it is, still arrives. And when it does, even the land seems to sigh in relief. Now, I have to ask you, what would you have done? When power crosses the line, when the law gets bent by those who are supposed to uphold it, is it justice to fight back, or just another kind of fire? Let me know. Tell your story. Because the line between right and wrong out here, it's as thin as ash and twice as hard to hold. So, what's your take? Was justice done, or does karma still have a bill to settle? Drop your thoughts below, or tell me when you saw right and wrong collide. Sometimes, that's all it takes to keep the fire from coming back.